Hi, I'm Donna Jordan from Jordan Fabrics. Today I'm going to show you how to make a very simple quilt. We have a lot of customers who want to make a wedding quilt, and this is a really great combination of fabrics that you could use for a more modern looking simple wedding quilt. This is from Wyndham Fabrics and it's a line called Lamiki. And because the scale of the prints are a little bit bigger, I'm going to make bigger patchwork for these, and I think I've got all the numbers worked out here. So I'm going to get some of the fabrics off the bolts, get them ironed up, and we'll get started. I need 1/4 yard off of each one of these prints to make a 40 by 60 inch quilt. So I'm just going to cut 1/4 yards off of the bolts here, and then I'm going to iron them up nice and flat, and then we will cut everything out. I always iron my fabrics really flat before I cut them with steam, so that when I cut, all the pieces will be more precise. First step is to cut 2.5 inch strips from all of the fabrics. So I'm going to cut everything to 2.5 inch strips, and then I will show you how to do the subcuts. I have all of the strips cut. There's 3 strips from each fabric. So I put 1 of the strips here and 2 of the strips here. Now to do the subcuts, I can do them all at once. So for this group here, we are going to do a 10.5 and a 6.5. Those are inches. So that's what we're gonna do there. And for this group where we have only 1 over here, we are gonna do 2.5, 2.5, 2.5, 6.5, 6.5. Now I like to write it down right before I cut it because it really helps me so I don't make a mistake. So that's for that, this is for this. So I'm going to leave them in place on the cutting board. I'm going to turn the cutting board, and this is the way I'm going to make my subcuts. So it's all ready, it's lined up on the board, and I'm cutting 6 layers at a time. You may not want to cut that many. You may want to do less layers. You should cut what you are comfortable with. I'm using the weight to help hold down my ruler. And so my first cut is going to be 6.5. So I'm just going to move this over 6.5 inches and put the weight back on it. And then I can get a nice accurate cut without having to worry about that ruler traveling. The next cut is 10.5 inches. So I can take this, measure from my last cut, 10.5 inches. We're going to be right on that line right there. I'll put the weight back down. And that's all the subcutting for this set. For these subcuts, we need a total of 20.5 inches. So I'm going to measure on here to make sure that I can get 20.5 inches. You can get that from most fabrics. It's just if there's a really wide selvage, you might have to make sure you make your first cut down here really close to the fold. We've got plenty, so I'm going to go ahead and do that first cut right here. Now that everything's cut, I'll show you how to put one block together. So we are going to have a whole square or border, so to speak, of those. And then let's put a light one in the middle here. And then we're going to get a medium colored one for around the outside. So we're going to take the longer pieces here, a couple shorter ones here. And that is basically what the block is going to look like. It's got a center square with one fabric around it and another fabric around that. So I'm going to pick my pieces from all the stuff that's cut. So I basically have a medium, a dark, a light, but in different positions for each block. I have a few of the blocks picked out here. So here's one all laid out. And as usually happens, you can't fit all the pieces together when you have the seam allowances added to every piece. But basically we are going to sew this row, then put these pieces on the top and bottom, these on the sides, and these on the top and bottom. So it's really easy sewing, and we don't have to match any of the intersections in this section that we're sewing right now. We just have to sew them together, and I'm going to just put the seam allowances either to one side or towards the outside of the block. I haven't figured out a good way to chain piece this whole quilt yet, because I think I want to pick out the blocks individually. I really want to see which fabric is going to be which next to which. Now that these three are sewn together, you can see that these two are going to fit on there exactly. So we're just going to sew one to the top and one to the bottom. So now we've got the top and the bottom sewn on. We sewed these onto the sides. Last step is just to put these two pieces here and here. All we have to do now is give it a nice pressing. So my seam allowances are all going away from the middle, so I'm just going to smooth it out, and then I'm going to iron it a little without steam first and make sure everything is square and everything is opened up. And once it looks good, then I'm going to set everything with the steam. Very easy, very nice with these beautiful prints. So I need to make 24 blocks total. So I'm going to go back to where my cut pieces are, and I'm going to lay them out block at a time so I can make sure I have a nice blend of a light, a medium, and a dark. I'm going to start with the longest pieces. So we need 2 of these long pieces for each block, and then we need 2 of the 6.5 inches, the 6.5 inch pieces for the same block, and that'll do the outside of each block. So I like to lay these all out so that I can plan out my blocks. If you don't want to be real picky, or you have a lot of different fabrics and it doesn't matter, you can just pick them up as you sew. But I like to get all the big ones laid out, and then I'm going to put the medium ones in that go inside it on top so that I can make sure I have really nice looking blocks. So here is the outside for these blocks. So now we need the ones that are going to go right inside that. So that's going to be 2 more of the 6.5s and a matching set of 2.5s. So we got to find that in the group here. So this one would look really nice up against that, and that means we want a medium colored center. That one will look good. That'll be a great looking block. Now for this one, we'll probably go darker next. So we need a 6.5, and we need the matching 2.5s, 2 of them. And then we need a center. And for the center, we want a little bit of contrast. So we could go lighter. How about that? That'll make a really nice center. So I'm going to continue to do this for all of my blocks, and that way I won't end up with one block that has this in the middle and on the outside and in the center. That's not what we want. We want a variety in every block. The blocks are all finished, and I've laid them out 4 blocks by 6 blocks, and I did it sort of a random pattern. I just like to stand back and look and make sure I've got the darks and lights kind of balanced, and I don't end up with 2 blocks that are really similar right next to each other. Now to sew the rows together, one thing that makes it really easy is when you've got the long strip here, and right next to it, this block has the long strips here. Because that way we don't have to match up the seam allowances. These seam allowances are here, but these are over here. So I've alternated the way the blocks lay throughout the whole quilt, and that way we can sew the blocks and rows together really, really quickly. After I get my blocks sewn together, I'm going to do a small stopping border with this dark print. Then I'm going to do a bigger border with this beautiful print here. And then I'm going to get it onto the quilting machine, and then I will show you when it's all finished. This is by far one of the fastest quilts I've ever made. I literally finished it up yesterday afternoon, and I just started it the day before. I'm so happy with how it turned out. I love all the different textures. It just has a lot of balance, and it was just satisfying to make. The quilt turned out about 53 by 73, so it's a great throw size. And again, I used 1/4 yard of 12 different prints. You could also use fat quarters. You could also use a jelly roll. So it's very, very versatile. We will have a free download pattern so that you can easily print it off and make your own. I quilted it in a simple pattern called wiggle weave. So it's just got a couple this way, then a couple that way, a couple this way. I just didn't want to fight with all the different textures we've got going on here. So I wanted a simple quilting pattern, fairly dense.
Hi, I'm Matt Jordan from Jordan Fabrics here in Grants Pass, Oregon. We're giving away a 2.5-inch strip set, which I cut just about a week ago, and we call it Forest Gems. And also along with the giveaway, we're giving away the Tradewinds pattern, which we did a video on a few months ago. You can look that up on our Jordan Fabrics YouTube. This is an example of the fabrics. It's not an example, it is the fabrics that you will be receiving in this kit. Let me shake those up a little bit. It's kind of, there's purples and greens and aquas and blues. Absolutely beautiful. Anthology batiks. So we look forward to doing that. I'll see you next time.
It's really easy to enter the contest. All you have to do is click the link below and put in your email address. Now the contest is open to everyone worldwide, so even if you've entered before, enter again and you might win the jelly roll. Thanks to everybody for watching our tutorial today on It's Hip to Be Square. We had a lot of fun making the quilt, and we hope you enjoy making your own version of it. Happy quilting!